By far the most common question that I've been asked is, how do I wire up my 4AGE? As there's 4 different types of 4AGE, you'll need to identify which one you have and obtain the appropriate wiring diagrams. The first edition is the 16 valve Bigport. It was used in the A82 and A86 Corollas. The A82 being a front wheel drive version and the A86 being rear wheel drive. I find the easiest way to identify this motor is to look at the inlet manifold. The casting on the top of it will be flat and you will see the letters TVIS stamped. The second is the 16 valve small port. It only came out in the A92 Corollas. If you look at the inlet manifold on the top, you will notice the ribbed casting. In addition to the ribbed casting, you'll also notice an oil drain on the head that goes back to the block. This is another way to determine that it's a 16 valve small port. The third type is the 20 valve silver top. This came out in the A101 Corollas. The easiest way to determine this one is the presence of the silver cam covers, an airflow meter, and also the full throttle badge that exists on the inlet manifold. The final addition is the 20 valve black top. As you probably guessed, the cam covers are now painted black instead of silver, and the airflow meter has been replaced with a map sensor. If you look at the inlet manifold, there is also the lack of the full throttle badge. So to sum up, the main differences between the 20 valve and 16 valve is the individual throttle bodies on the 20 valve versus the single throttle body on the 16 valve. If you also look at the cam covers, the 16 valve will say twin cam 16 valve Toyota 1600, whereas the 20 valve will have the Toyota emblem with twin cam 20 written on it. This is often confused by the police, where they think the motor is actually a 2-litre engine instead of the 1600. The 16 valve Bigport and smallport also have a supercharger variant. This variant is referred to as a 4AG ZE. To spot a 4AG ZE, aside from the obvious supercharger can off the side, have a look at the inlet manifold. It will be made to suit the intercooler piping, and also the cam covers will bear the words Twin Cam 16 Supercharger. Now that you've identified your 4AGE, it's time to find an appropriate wiring diagram. For the purpose of the video, I'll be working off the 16 valve Bigport or the A82 diagrams. Here is a quick table of each of the symbols in the wiring diagram and what they mean. You should familiarise yourself with these, as it will make your life a lot easier when reading diagrams in the future. So now that you're familiar with each of the symbols and what they mean, the next stage is to piece together how everything is interconnected. In the diagram, this is drawn by a series of lines. You'll notice the lines have letters written next to them. These letters represent the colour of the wire. If you notice a slash and then a second letter, that means it's a striped wire. For instance, B/R means it's a black wire with a red stripe. You'll notice that the lines intersect each other quite frequently. So does this mean that they're joined together there? In most instances, no. It's only drawn for illustrative purposes and that the lines must cross because there's so much going on in the diagram. Where a splice is present, you'll see a dot. If you don't see a dot, it means you can ignore where the lines intersect. So let's recap what I've just said with an example. Locate the plus B in the engine control unit. Now that you've found it, follow it down, and the first thing you'll see is the B/R. That tells me that it's a black wire with a red stripe. Follow it further down and you'll see where the line intersects. Yes, there's a dot present, so that means it's a splice. So when you follow that to the left and up, you'll also notice that it's a black/red wire that's spliced into it, and the pin that it connects to in the ECU is the plus B1. Now that you've traced these lines in the diagram, you can confidently say that the plus B and the plus B1 pins at the ECU are connected to each other. So if you trace the plus B wire further down, you'll see where it intersects with the second line. You notice that the dot is present, so that means it's the second splice. Follow that to the right and you'll see the third intersection. That also has a dot present. That means that at that point, all 3 wires are connected to each other. Follow the line further to the right where it intersects with the FC line. The first thing you'll notice is, unlike the other ones we've just discussed, there's no dot present. This means that the wires are physically separate and there's no splice occurring. So for the purposes of reading the diagram, ignore that the lines intersect and cross over each other. Now that you can read the wiring diagram, I will start to look at what is required by the engine for it to run. I like to break the wiring up into 7 different categories. The first is the ECU power. The ECU needs 2 power sources, constant power and ignition power. Constant power is provided to the ECU via the BATT pin. You'll notice that this is a black wire with a yellow stripe, and it is protected by the 15 amp stop fuse. Okay, so now that we know that, how do you actually know what pin in the ECU connector it connects to? At the bottom of the diagram is the actual mapping of where the pins connect in the ECU plugs. You'll notice that the BATT pin is in the third connector on the right, on the top row, second from the right. How do you differentiate the difference between the 3 ECU plugs and which one is which? You do this by counting the number of pins in each connector, as no 2 plugs in the loom will have the same number of pins. The first plug has 10 pins, the second 18 and the third 14. You'll find that the first 2 plugs from the ECU are connected to the engine harness, whereas the third is connected to the body loom of the car and is very often forgotten when being supplied. Now that the constant power is provided to the ECU, you'll need to add the ignition power. The pins plus B and plus B1 are expecting the ignition power. From factory, this is provided via the EFI main relay. From the KE70 onwards, there is a provision within the factory fuse box for the main relay to be installed. So once you've provided those 3 power wires to the ECU will turn on and function as expected. I guess you're wondering why I haven't mentioned anything about an earth for the ECU. The ECU does require an earth, but the factory engine loom shares a common earth for the ECU and other sensors. This is bolted to the inlet manifold of the motor. The next section I'll talk about is the starter motor wiring. There's 3 main components to this. The first is the actual cranking of the engine. The second is the signal to the ECU and the cold start injector. And the third is the powering of the fuel pump. There are 2 main wires that run to the starter motor. The first is a thick higher current wire which runs directly to the battery. A lot of people are surprised to find that this wire does not contain a fuse for protection. The reason for no fuse is it isn't uncommon for a starter motor to draw the entire current available in the battery. This can exceed 200 amps. The second wire is a trigger wire which engages the starter motor to start cranking the engine. This is a much lower current draw. The wire that triggers the starter motor solenoid also splices to the SDA pin on the ECU. This provides a 12 volt input to the ECU to notify of the intention to start the engine. When the ECU knows of the start condition, timing is locked to prevent further timing advance, which makes the engine easier to start. The 16 valve Bigport also splices off to a cold start injector, which runs a time switch to provide additional fuel. The final component of the starting circuit is the fuel open circuit relay input. Another 12 volt signal goes to the open circuit relay, which then in turn engages the fuel pump. I'll discuss this in more detail when I talk about the fuel open circuit relay itself. The third category is the injectors, coil and igniter. If you locate the coil and igniter on the wiring diagram, you'll see the positive and negative terminals. The positive terminal has a black wire with an orange stripe, which is also spliced and shared with the igniter plus B. Provide this wire with 12 volt ignition power. The injectors use a yellow wire, and as you can see from the diagram, they are spliced into each other and interconnected. The A82 batch fires the injectors, so all 4 injectors fire at once. You'll see the #10 and #20 going back to the ECU. That is the injector driver, which provides an earth to the injector to open it. Like the coil and igniter, the injectors also need 12 volt ignition power. The fourth category is the fuel open circuit relay, or the fuel pump relay. Think of this relay as 2 separate relays that are combined within the same unit. The circuit opening relay can be triggered via 2 inputs. The first is the starting signal from the starter circuit, which is a 12 volt input to the relay, and the second is the connection from the FC pin on the ECU. This pin switches to ground when the motor is running. It is important that you don't hardwire the fuel pump to the ignition relay, as the last thing you need is, if you're in a crash and the fuel lines are ruptured, for the entire fuel tank to be emptied onto the road or hot exhaust causing a fire. Once the open circuit relay is triggered, the output or the powering of the fuel pump is done via the blue wire with the black stripe. The earth to the relay is provided by the white wire with the black stripe. The final wire that is connected to the relay is the input wire. This is powered via the EFI main relay. The wire is black in colour with a red stripe. Now that these steps are completed, you should be able to start the motor. The next piece of wiring you need to look into is the charging circuit. A good way to tell if you've got a front wheel drive engine loom is the presence of the alternator wiring within the engine harness. The rear wheel drive or the A86 looms connect to the alternator via the body loom. The alternator, like the starter motor, has a thick wire that is used to transfer the high current to the battery and charge it. This is protected by the 80 amp fuse. The other three wires that connect to the alternator plug are the following: the sense wire, the ignition wire, and the light wire. You'll find on the 16 valve the alternator plug is round, whereas on the 20 valve it's an oval shape. The sense wire is the thinner white wire that connects as close to the battery as possible. This will indicate to the alternator how much voltage it is outputting. The alternator has an internally built regulator which will stop the battery charging at around 14.4 volts. If you're finding less than 13 volts, there is either something wrong with the alternator or the wiring itself. The next wire is the ignition wire. This wire is fed from the engine main relay and only has power when the ignition is on. The final layer is the white wire. This is the one that most people struggle with. It is yellow in colour and connects to the fuse box, alt fuse. After the fuse is the globe in the dash. The globe already has 12 volt power from the body harness when the ignition is on, and the alternator provides the earth to the globe when a fault is detected. The fault can be the alternator is not spinning fast enough or the regulator or brushes have worn out. You may find when the regulator brushes are starting to fail, at low RPM the alternator light may come on and go off as soon as you give the car a rev. A correctly wired alternator will see the alternator light come on with the ignition prior to the engine being started and will go out as soon as the car is running. The final section is what I refer to as the warning lights or the dash display. For the engine temperature gauge in the dash, a temperature sender is located in the top radiator hose outlet, which sends the coolant temperature to the dash. This wire is a single wire that is yellow in colour with a green stripe. The next item is the oil pressure. This will provide an earth when there is low oil pressure. The sensor is located near the oil pump or behind the air conditioning compressor. One thing to make sure of is that you've got the correct sender for the type of oil pressure warning system you have. There are the two types. One, the gauge, which actually shows the oil pressure, and the second one is the light only. If you have the gauge, the actual sender unit will be much larger than the light only one. If you run the gauge sender on a light only warning system, you'll find the oil pressure light will come on during different RPMs. Next up is the check engine light. Have a look at the wiring diagram, in particular the W pin at the ECU. You'll notice this wire is green in colour with a red stripe. This wire connects to the check engine globe that is located in the instrument cluster. The check engine globe is fed ignition power from the body loom, and when the ECU detects a fault, it will switch to ground via transistors in the ECU, and the light will turn on. This is the same as an earth wire. I will cover how to read the ECU codes in a separate video. The tachometer is also another item that is in the gauge. There is a pin in the igniter that is black in colour that will send the RPM signal for the dash. It's just a simple case of connecting this up to the right connection. The final thing I'd like to talk about is the speedo sense wire. This is an output from the back of the speedo cluster which will send a pulse to the ECU to indicate what the current speed is. This should be connected, especially on the 20 valves, as if you don't connect it, the RPM limit will be significantly lower than what it should be. This now concludes the How to Wire My 4AGE video. The video is intended to provide you with enough information to know how to research the wiring of the car. It's not a step-by-step guide. Also keep in mind it's not uncommon for a qualified auto electrician to take up to a day to complete this properly. I will record further videos outlining some of the tips and tricks I've learned over the years with rerouting wires to suit both front and rear wheel drive cars. I'll also go into in-depth details of what each of the sensors do and how to test them. Anything else in the wiring diagrams you see that I have not covered, it's because as far as the conversion goes, the item is self-contained within the loom and there's no further intervention required from you to make the car run. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please comment below if you have found it useful, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks again.